Have you ever noticed how your depth tends to unsettle people? Why does it feel like the more you think, the less you belong? Why does your silence, your questions, and your refusal to play along with shallow expectations cause people, especially women, to withdraw, criticize, or misread you? There's a quote by Søren Kierkegaard that says, "People demand freedom of speech as compensation for the freedom of thought which they seldom use." But you think, and that's the issue right there. You're not dangerous because you're aggressive. You're dangerous because you refuse to be predictable. And in a world where predictability is mistaken for safety, the intelligent man becomes a threat simply by existing. Modern relationships, they're based on comfort, not truth. But the intelligent man, he's allergic to illusions. He peels back the masks people wear. He questions why love feels like a transaction. He sees the performance in people's eyes, the difference between what's said and what's really meant. And Kierkegaard warned us that the crowd is just a lie. When a man refuses to be swallowed up by the crowd when he chooses his own path, his own meaning, his own solitude, he shatters the entire framework that society uses to keep people passive and emotionally compliant. Women don't fear intelligent men because they're smart. They fear them because they can't control them. They fear that intelligence because an intelligent man doesn't need flattery to feel desired. He doesn't seek validation to feel masculine. He doesn't play the puppet just to get picked. He doesn't chase because he sees that most chases are based on illusions, not love. And when he does love, he loves with brutal clarity, not for comfort, but for revelation. That kind of presence is rare, sharp, discerning, and honest in an existential sense. And what is rare is often rejected before it is respected. Kierkegaard spent a lot of time writing about despair, but not in the way most people think. He referred to it as the sickness unto death, the idea that a man isn't even aware that he's lost touch with his true self. And that's what modern culture fears in men, the idea that one day they might wake up. They might stop performing. They might stop being charming. Stop pretending. They might wake up to consciousness. Because a conscious man cannot be seduced by applause or emotional chaos. A conscious man is no longer driven by the need to be liked. And when a man stops needing to be liked, he becomes free. And when a man becomes free, he becomes dangerous. Ask yourself, why do you feel misunderstood in every room you enter? Why do you sense an unease around your silence? It's because, in this attention-driven world, most people derive their sense of identity from being seen. But the intelligent man, he derives his identity from seeing. He looks deeply into the world and others, and that deep seeing makes people uncomfortable, especially when they're hiding something. Kierkegaard said that life can only be understood backwards, but it must be lived forwards. And intelligent men, they live forward, but they're always watching. They're always dissecting, understanding everything. Power, emotion, seduction, fear. So what happens when a man stops being seduced by the surface? When he stops playing the game, he becomes unplayable not because he's cold, but because he's whole. And that wholeness, it's a threat to the modern dating economy, where confusion is currency and emotional unpredictability is often mistaken for passion. Kierkegaard knew that. He walked away from the only woman he ever loved. Not because he didn't care, but because he did. Because he knew that living authentically meant rejecting the role society tries to assign to him, even if it cost him everything. Men, listen up. The more intelligent you become, the more isolated you might feel. That's not a failure. That's the price of awakening. You scare people not because you're unkind, but because you're unconditioned. A man who can't be conditioned, he can't be controlled. And that is the greatest threat to any system built on manipulation, including romantic systems. Most people are not looking for love. They're looking for usefulness. They want you to serve a role. Provider, performer, protector, puppet. But the intelligent man steps outside those frames. And when he does, he becomes invisible to those still inside them. Kierkegaard called this the leap of faith, to leave behind the comfort of roles, systems, and superficial expectations and walk alone, to choose truth over comfort, to choose despair, if it's honest, over fake bliss. And that leap, it will cost you. It will strip you of things, but it will also awaken you, because once you truly see, you can never unsee. And your intelligence, if it's rooted in self-awareness and not just information, will transform you. It will turn you from a man seeking validation into a man seeking meaning, peace, or God. And that's terrifying to others and sometimes to yourself. Because what comes next? It's not for the faint-hearted. Kierkegaard once said, "To dare is to lose one's footing momentarily. Not to dare is to lose oneself." And most men have already lost themselves, not because they're not smart, but because they've been trained to apologize for their intelligence. You were told to soften your words, to dim your insights, to ignore what's missing, smile at what's fake, laugh at the shallow, and stay silent when something's wrong. You were taught to be agreeable, just to be accepted. But that kind of acceptance, the kind that demands you abandon your essence, isn't really acceptance. It's assimilation, and the intelligent man who refuses to assimilate becomes a threat, not just to women, but to anyone who profits from his silence. You scare people not because you're aggressive, but because you're precise. When you speak, your words carry weight. When you look at someone, they feel seen, not flattered, not played with, just seen. And being seen, that's unbearable for most people, especially those still wearing masks. Most people don't want real connection. They want comfort. They want reinforcement of their illusions. But the intelligent man, he dismantles illusions wherever he goes, even in love, especially in love. For him, love isn't a game. It's not a power play. It's not a role play for unresolved childhood wounds. For the intelligent man, love is truth. And truth doesn't always feel good. It feels real. And that's why you meet resistance. That's why you're often met with confusion or even hostility. Because your presence threatens the system that rewards performance. You don't beg. You don't chase. You don't explain yourself over and over just to be understood. You walk away, not because you're angry, but because your soul refuses to be auctioned off to the highest bidder of convenience. That kind of man, calm, grounded, inwardly sovereign, that's the man who terrifies others, because he's not reacting. He's choosing, and choosing authentically, choosing consciously, is the greatest rebellion left in this world. You want to know why intelligent men scare modern women. It's not because women are shallow. It's not because they're malicious. It's because we live in a world where most people are conditioned to expect performance, not presence. And the intelligent man cannot fake presence. He brings himself fully, or not at all. And most people aren't ready for that kind of fullness. It's too raw, too unfiltered, too demanding of self-awareness. Kierkegaard's life was a testament to this paradox. He loved Regina Olsen, but he left her, not because he didn't feel, but because he felt too much. He knew his path was solitary. He knew his inner world was too vast, too turbulent to anchor to anyone else. That's the paradox of the intelligent man. He longs for intimacy, but not at the cost of his integrity. He desires connection, but refuses to perform for it. He is willing to walk alone rather than dilute his essence just to be desired. And that's not arrogance, that's alignment. And it terrifies people because deep down, everyone wants to be chosen. But the intelligent man, he wants to be met. And being met, that requires the other person to also be whole, to have gone through their own fires, to have unlearned their own lies. And most people, they're not ready for that. So they call him distant. They call him cold. They call him difficult. But the truth is, you're not cold. You're clear. You don't hate women. You just don't worship illusions. You don't hate love. You just refuse to call dependency love. You've seen too much to keep playing blind. And that's what scares people. You're not manipulable. You're not predictable. You're not waiting to be told who to be. Kierkegaard said, the most common form of despair is not being who you are. But you, if you're still listening, you're different. You want to know who you are beyond the noise, beyond the roles, beyond the craving for approval. And that journey will cost you. It will cost you popularity. It will cost you comfort. It may even cost you love. But what you gain in return is far more powerful. Selfhood, sovereignty, sanity. You will stop searching for someone to complete you because you will no longer feel incomplete. And that, brother, is when you become truly dangerous, not to others, but to the system that thrives on broken men. Because the deeper you go, the more everything starts to unravel, especially the lies you've been told about what it means to be a man in the eyes of the world. Kierkegaard was never interested in success as society defines it. He wrote, "The greatest hazard of all, losing oneself, can occur very quietly in the world, as if it were nothing at all. And that's exactly what's happened to so many men. Quiet disappearance, not physical disappearance, not loud, but spiritual. Men have lost themselves trying to be palatable, trying to be charming, trying to be whatever the room wanted, until one day they look in the mirror and see a stranger. But the intelligent man, he can't pretend for long. The tension builds inside him. He starts to realize that what others call confidence is often arrogance, that what they call love is often dependency, that what they call chemistry is often trauma, speaking its native tongue. And when you truly start to see you suffer, that's the price of awareness. You suffer because you no longer fit in. You suffer because your questions ruin parties. Your clarity offends comfort. Your need for truth repels those addicted to performance. And this is where the Kierkegaardian paradox sets in. You either betray yourself to be accepted by the world, or you betray the world to remain true to yourself. Most men take the first path. It's easier. It's praised, but it's a slow death. The intelligent man, if he's brave, takes the second, and in that choice, he begins to live not comfortably, not safely, but honestly, and this honesty, it manifests in everything. How he speaks, how he dates, how he works, how he worships, how he walks away. And the world punishes that kind of man, because a man who cannot be seduced by the crowd becomes a mirror to everyone still trapped in it. Let's talk about relationships. Why does a woman feel uneasy around an intelligent man? Not because he doesn't care, but because he cares differently. He doesn't chase, he observes. He doesn't flatter, he listens. He doesn't respond to every emotional cue like a trained dog. He chooses his reactions with surgical precision. This makes him mysterious. And mystery. It terrifies people who need constant emotional reinforcement. The intelligent man is not absent. He's selectively present. And that selectivity feels like rejection to those who are used to being worshipped with little effort. But he doesn't worship. He discerns, because intelligence, when combined with emotional clarity, becomes spiritual X-ray vision. He sees through smiles, through games, through flattery. And that kind of sight unnerves anyone who's still hiding behind their walls. Kierkegaard often spoke about the responsibility of the individual to become a self, not a social role, not a performer, not a mirror of others' expectations, but a true self. And becoming a self, it requires silence, stillness, reflection, and solitude. 4 things modern culture is allergic to. Why? Because a man who sits in silence for too long might stop consuming, might stop conforming, might stop apologizing for who he is. And most terrifyingly, he might stop chasing things that were never worth his time in the first place. You want to terrify people? Walk into a room and don't seek attention. Just observe. Don't over-explain. Speak with precision. Set boundaries without raising your voice. Be kind without being compliant. Be romantic without being dependent. Watch what happens. Watch how people adjust themselves in your presence. Because deep down, everyone senses when a man is rooted, and most don't know what to do with him, especially when he's not performing. That's the secret of intelligent men. They don't perform, and that's what makes them dangerous. Kierkegaard wrote, "Once you label me, you negate me. The intelligent man cannot be labeled. Is he cold? No. He's composed. Is he arrogant? No. He's self-respecting. Is he aloof? No. He's discerning. But labels are easier than reflection, so the world will reduce him to whatever helps them cope with his clarity. But don't let that shake you. Let it sharpen you. Let it deepen your solitude. Let it fortify your path. You were not built to be palatable. You were not made to beg. You were not designed to be everyone's comfort zone. You were made to become a man in the Kierkegaardian sense, aware, faithful to truth, willing to walk alone into the storm. And if that's what it takes to keep your soul intact, then let's walk further into that storm. Kierkegaard warned us, the crowd is untruth. And yet, most men still look to the crowd for validation. They measure their worth by how many hearts they can win, how many smiles they can spark, how many people clap when they speak. But that applause, it's a trap. It teaches you to shape yourself according to what pleases others, not according to what is real within you. Here's the truth you weren't told. The more intelligent you become, the less applause you'll get, because you're no longer playing for the crowd. You're playing for your soul, and most people don't clap for that. They stare. They question. They shrink. You scare people not because you're cruel. You scare them because you're clear. In a culture built on noise, your silence is disturbing. In a world built on stimulation, your stillness is unsettling. In an age of constant availability, your refusal to be emotionally summoned on command feels like rebellion. And it is. It's the rebellion of a man who has reclaimed his mind, his heart, and his attention. You don't owe anyone a reaction. You don't owe anyone your confusion. The intelligent man does not explain himself to those committed to misunderstanding him. Have you noticed how quickly people grow uneasy when you stop oversharing? When you start protecting your thoughts? When your eyes say more than your words? This is the energy of a man who is no longer trying to be understood by everyone. And that kind of man terrifies not just women, but society at large, because society thrives when men are distracted, when they're addicted, when they're chasing. But the intelligent man doesn't chase. He chooses, and this choosing, the calm deliberation of a man who knows his worth, makes him unreadable, unplayable, untouchable. Kierkegaard called it the single individual, the man who has separated himself from the crowd, not in arrogance, but in authenticity. He walks alone, but not because he's antisocial. He walks alone because most paths lead to noise, and he wants truth. He wants depth. He wants God in whatever form that takes for him. And here's the paradox. The more rooted you become in yourself, the more people will try to shake you. Not because you're wrong, but because you remind them of what they abandoned: depth, integrity, silence. In love, this is even more profound. The intelligent man doesn't romanticize chaos. He doesn't confuse unpredictability with passion. He's drawn to alignment, not excitement. He wants peace, not performance. And when he speaks of love, he speaks of something holy, not hormonal. That kind of desire, that sacred, quiet, unwavering presence can be terrifying to a woman who's only known love as drama. It can feel cold, but it's not. It's steady. And steadiness? It's unfamiliar to people still addicted to the highs and lows of emotional instability. But you must not shrink. You must not soften your clarity to be more acceptable. You must not hide your intelligence to seem less intimidating. Your role is not to fit into the world's confusion. Your role is to remain anchored in truth. And sometimes, truth walks alone. Kierkegaard lived in that solitude. He was mocked, ridiculed, misunderstood. He walked away from the love of his life, not because he didn't feel, but because he felt too much. Because he knew that his life's mission, his truth, could not coexist with the roles others wanted him to play. And that's your challenge now. Will you keep playing roles for comfort, or will you finally become the man you were meant to be, even if it means being feared, rejected, or alone? The intelligent man doesn't seek to be liked. He seeks to be aligned. And when you become aligned, truly aligned, the right people will recognize you. Not because you impressed them, but because your silence echoed something they forgot they had inside themselves. So stop over-explaining. Stop apologizing for your solitude. Stop doubting the strength of your vision. You are not too quiet. You are not too deep. You are not too intense. You are not too much. You are becoming whole. And in a fragmented world, wholeness is terrifying. Why? Because it can't be manipulated. It can't be seduced. It can't be purchased. And above all, it can't be ignored. You are not broken. You are becoming, and what you are becoming is exactly what the world needs and fears at the same time. A man who cannot be moved by lies, not even the ones he used to tell himself. Kierkegaard believed that deep down, every man is called to become something more than what the world expects. Not more in status, not more in fame, but more in truth. And that's the essence of your transformation. It's not about knowing more. It's about becoming more. Becoming what? A man who is no longer defined by reactions, expectations, or fleeting desires, but by the eternal commitment to becoming whole, no matter the cost. By now, you've probably felt the weight of this path, the ache of solitude, the sting of being misunderstood, the exhaustion of being the only one in the room who sees clearly while others play blind. But let me tell you something that most won't. That pain, it's sacred. That loneliness, it's not your enemy. It's your proving ground. Because once you've learned to walk alone, to sit in silence, to observe without reacting, to love without losing yourself, then and only then do you become truly untouchable. The intelligent man who embodies Kierkegaard's truths does not fear rejection because he no longer lives in pursuit of being chosen. He has chosen himself. And that changes everything. It changes how you love, You stop looking for someone to fill your silence and start seeking someone who respects it. It changes how you work. You stop performing for a paycheck and start building something that reflects your essence. It changes how you exist because you're no longer driven by escape, but by alignment, and this alignment makes you rare. Not because you're better than anyone else, but because you've dared to face what most men never do, the unbearable light of your own potential. Most people run from it. They settle. They shrink. They conform. But you listened to the whisper. You followed it through the fog, through the heartbreak, through the ridicule, and now, here you are, not finished, not flawless, but free. And that freedom, as quiet as it may seem, speaks louder than any performance ever could. So, if you're misunderstood, good. If you're feared, good. If you're called cold, arrogant, distant, good. It means you've stopped being digestible. It means you've stopped living on the surface. It means you've started to matter. Because, at the end of the day, the world doesn't need more nice guys. It doesn't need more charm. It doesn't need more puppets. It needs men, real men who know who they are, who walk in silence, who love without losing themselves, who speak when it counts and disappear when it doesn't. Men who are so rooted in their truth that nothing, not even love, can make them abandon it. And if you are that man or becoming that man, then know this: you will not be for everyone, but you will be unforgettable to the few who see you. You will not be worshipped by the crowd, but you will be respected by the rare, and most importantly, you will respect yourself. In the quiet moments, in the hard choices, in the long nights when you choose peace over performance, truth over approval, solitude over shallow comfort. If this message spoke to your soul, don't let it end here. Like this video, share it with someone who's still in the fog. Subscribe for more truths they'll never teach you in school. And if you want to support this mission, if you believe men need to hear this now, more than ever, click the link in the description and support the channel. Your voice matters. Your mind matters.